The galaxy believed honor was measured by endurance, and victory by how much loss a team could absorb without hesitation. The final had already been solved. The algorithms knew the outcome. The judges waited for impact. The stands waited to see who would fail next. When the human goalkeeper lost consciousness, the system subtracted him from the equation. That was how the sport worked. That was how it had always worked. But the humans did not adapt. They did not compensate. They did not fight harder for the win. They stopped. They removed their uniforms. And they left the field, abandoning the trophy to drift in silence. Within one standard day, the league collapsed. Because after that moment, no one wanted to win at that price ever again. And if this sounds like a story about sport, it is not. It is a story about why humanity terrifies the galaxy more than any weapon ever could. The grand arena of Kairos drifted in perfect silence between twin blue suns, its vast superstructure gliding through vacuum with the indifference of a natural law. Light spilled across its lattice in cold blues and surgical whites, reflecting off gravitic anchors and sensor veins that hummed beneath perception. The arena was not built to inspire awe. It was built to calculate. Every surface, every curve, every invisible field line existed to eliminate uncertainty and transform chaos into numbers that could be weighed, compared, and resolved. Zero-gravity ball had emerged from civilizations that distrusted emotion and revered balance. It was a sport designed by minds that believed honor survived only where hesitation was forbidden. Momentum was sacred. Continuity was law. The loss of a player was not tragedy but refinement, an expected subtraction in a closed system. To stop was to admit weakness. To adapt was virtue. The arena itself enforced these beliefs, its internal sensors tasting motion, measuring force, and whispering probabilities into the hidden chambers of the Galactic League's adjudication engines. The final match unfolded like a theorem reaching its conclusion. Bodies spun through controlled violence, magnetic boots disengaging and re-engaging with precise rhythm. Impacts rang through the structure as dull, distant thunder, vibrations traveling through metal and field alike. The smell of ionized air bled into filtration systems, carrying the sharp tang of exertion and heated alloys. Above it all, the twin suns cast long, intersecting shadows, marking time without mercy. Within the council observation tiers, alien overseers watched with detached reverence. Their multifaceted eyes tracked trajectories and survival margins rather than faces. To them, the outcome had already been decided. Every variable had collapsed into certainty long before the opening maneuver. Injury was not merely anticipated but required, the inevitable cost of proving worth. Attrition was noble because it demonstrated obedience to structure. Victory belonged to those who accepted loss without complaint and continued forward regardless. The human team moved within this system like any other competitor, their bodies adapting to the brutal elegance of the game. Their passes were sharp, their formations mathematically sound, their movements aligned with the expectations encoded into the arena's core. Nothing about them suggested deviation. Nothing hinted at fracture. The probability curves remained stable. The observers remained calm. Then mass shifted where it should not have. A convergence of force snapped into a moment of stillness as one human body failed to correct its spin. The arena registered the event instantly, classifying it as a non-lethal incapacitation well within acceptable parameters. The equations adjusted. The match was expected to flow onward, purified by loss. Silence deepened, heavy and anticipatory, as the system waited for continuation. The galaxy had seen this moment countless times before, and it had always ended the same way. The opposing teams drifted within the arena's luminous lattice, bodies suspended in a geometry of force fields and invisible vectors. Every movement left a ghost of data behind it, traced by omniscient algorithms that tasted velocity and predicted collision before muscle fibers could tense. The airless void carried no sound, yet the arena thrummed with vibration, a low, constant resonance that crawled through armor and bone alike. It was the sound of certainty being maintained. From the highest observation tiers, the Galactic League's systems watched without blinking. Probability engines bloomed like silent flowers, unfolding layers of prediction that mapped angles, impacts, and survival rates in relentless real time. A shoulder check translated into percentages. A spin converted into acceptable risk. Pain itself was rendered into a variable so small it barely disturbed the equations. This was not cruelty. This was refinement. The league believed that by stripping competition of sentiment, it revealed truth. The human goalkeeper moved along the defensive arc with disciplined precision, boots disengaging from magnetic nodes in practiced intervals. Their breathing fogged the inside of the helmet, moisture quickly wicked away by regulation systems. Every reflex was sharp, every response aligned with training designed to satisfy the arena's expectations. The algorithms approved. The curve of survival remained comfortably above the threshold that mattered. Then mass converged too fast, and alignment failed. A grav spike, flaring with compressed force, intersected the goalkeeper's trajectory at a fraction of an angle too narrow for correction. The impact did not explode. It folded. Kinetic energy collapsed inward, snapping through armor plating and sending a shudder through the arena's frame. The human body jerked once, then drifted, limbs slack, spin uncorrected. A thin mist of coolant and blood spiraled outward, scattering into glittering droplets that caught the twin sun's light. The systems responded instantly. Sensors flooded the space where the body floated, piercing skin and suit alike with scans invisible to the eye. Neural activity registered as suppressed but present. Cardiac rhythm staggered, then stabilized within parameters. Life remained. Function did not. The algorithms categorized the event with clinical speed, non-fatal incapacitation, acceptable loss, performance impact with intolerances. The equations adjusted. Where the human goalkeeper had been, a blank space opened, immediately compensated for by recalculated vectors. Defensive coverage thinned, probabilities dipped, then stabilized again as the remaining players were expected to adapt. The rules demanded continuation. A fallen player did not invalidate the match, it purified it, burning away inefficiency and sentiment. This belief was older than the league itself, etched into its founding charters and reinforced by centuries of unbroken tradition. Among the alien spectators, satisfaction rippled in subtle, species-specific ways. Color-shifting crests deepened in approval. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed with calm affirmation. To them, this moment was not tragedy but proof. The system worked. The arena had tested a competitor and extracted its cost without collapsing into disorder. There was beauty in that balance, a cold elegance that reassured civilizations built on the fear of emotional excess. Historical overlays streamed through the observer's neural implants, recalling other teams, other species, other moments when loss had refined greatness. Entire cultures had earned their place in the league by demonstrating this exact resilience. Those that hesitated, that broke formation or demanded pause, were remembered only as footnotes. Softer cultures faded because they could not endure subtraction without complaint. That was the lesson the league taught, again and again. The opposing team adjusted instantly, tightening their formation with ruthless efficiency. Their movements sharpened, strikes growing more aggressive as the weakened defense revealed exploitable gaps. The arena rewarded them with smoother field dynamics, the invisible currents subtly assisting their advance. Everything flowed as designed. Everything waited for the humans to comply. The unconscious goalkeeper continued to drift, rotation slow and graceless. Emergency beacons pulsed against the inside of the suit, broadcasting distress signals that the arena acknowledged but deprioritized. Medical response was scheduled for post-match retrieval. The body was an object now, cataloged and ignored until the game concluded. That, too, was tradition. Data projections flickered across the council tiers, illustrating how often this had occurred. Thousands of matches, tens of thousands of injured competitors across galactic history. The pattern was immutable. The humans, young and emotionally volatile by galactic standards, were about to learn why the league endured while others vanished. They would learn that participation required acceptance. They would learn that honor was obedience to outcome. The humans did not immediately react. For several heartbeats measured only by internal chronometers, their formation held. Then micro-delays appeared in their motion. A half-second of hesitation stretched into something visible. The algorithms flagged the anomaly, assigning it a negligible deviation value. Stress response, likely. Emotional lag was expected in newer species. It would correct itself, but correction did not arrive. One human drifted closer to the unconscious goalkeeper than optimization allowed. Another altered trajectory to intersect that path, sacrificing position. Their movements lost the clean symmetry the arena favored, replaced by something less precise, more urgent. The probability curves began to wobble, dipping below comfortable margins. Warning thresholds flickered amber in the adjudication systems. The alien spectators leaned forward, curiosity replacing satisfaction. This was the moment cultures either hardened or broke. The league had witnessed this inflection countless times. Most species adjusted, burying instinct beneath doctrine. A few failed, and their teams never returned. The human cluster tightened around the fallen body, forming an irregular shield of flesh and composite armor. Impact struck them and dissipated unevenly, energy bleeding into muscles and joints rather than flowing along optimized paths. Pain spiked across biometric feeds. The arena registered inefficiency, waste, and unacceptable deviation from expected behavior. Violation flags bloomed across the system's awareness. Yet the humans persisted, their motions no longer guided by the invisible hand of probability, but by something denser and harder to quantify. They absorbed force meant to scatter them. They slowed the game without engaging the formal mechanisms designed for interruption. The arena's hum deepened, an irritated vibration as the field struggled to reconcile what it observed with what it had been built to allow. For the first time in the league's recorded history, the algorithms hesitated. The unconscious goalkeeper's drift arrested as human hands closed around the suit. The cluster stabilized, rotating as one mass, shielding their fallen teammate from further contact. The arena's systems continued to demand continuation, but the demand went unanswered. Momentum stalled. Equilibrium cracked. Across the observation tiers, satisfaction drained away, replaced by unease. The purity of the moment soured as a forbidden realization took shape. Humanity was not adapting. Humanity was refusing to refine itself through loss. In that refusal, something ancient and dangerous stirred, something the league had never learned how to calculate. Momentum bled out of the arena like heat escaping a cracked hull. Where vectors had once flowed cleanly, motion stuttered and tangled. The human players did not fan outward to rebalance the field. They did not snap into the tighter, sharper geometries the arena demanded. Instead, they drifted inward, converging on the slow, helpless spin of their unconscious keeper. Their movements lacked polish, hands reaching with a tremor that betrayed fatigue and fear. Boots scraped against gravitic currents instead of locking cleanly. It was ugly by professional standards, a mess of overlapping trajectories and wasted effort. Medical beacons flared into existence around the fallen human, brilliant white against the cold blues of the arena lattice. They had not been authorized. They had not been scheduled. The arena's systems registered them as errors and immediately attempted suppression. The beacons persisted anyway, pulsing with stubborn regularity, broadcasting vital signs and distress across channels meant to remain silent during active play. The algorithms reacted with escalating urgency, rerouting processing power to isolate the anomaly. Inefficiency alarms cascaded through the adjudication course. Probability curves warped and twisted, dipping into ranges marked with warning glyphs that had not been illuminated in centuries. The arena's internal hum deepened, a grinding resonance that vibrated through armor and bone as the field struggled to reconcile what it was observing. Motion without optimization. Protection without advantage. Stopping without authorization. The crowd reacted before the systems could adapt. The silence of vacuum beyond the arena shattered into psychic noise as trillions of spectators transmitted confusion, outrage, and disbelief through relay networks. The roar manifested as pressure changes and light distortions, a storm of emotion translated into data spikes that battered the league's monitoring arrays. This was not part of the ritual. This was not how finals unfolded. The humans were violating more than rules. They were violating expectation itself. The opposing team hesitated, their own movements faltering as targeting solutions collapsed. They had been trained to exploit weakness, not to interpret refusal. Their bodies hovered at the edge of engagement, weapons of momentum primed with nowhere clean to strike. The arena attempted to guide them, subtly adjusting currents to encourage continuation, but even they sensed something had shifted. The field no longer felt neutral. It felt watched. At the center of the disturbance, the humans completed the impossible act. They stopped. Not a deceleration, not a tactical pause masked as repositioning. They arrested their motion entirely, locking boots and limbs against the field, anchoring themselves around the unconscious body. In zero-gravity ball, stillness was failure. Movement was life. To stop was to remove oneself from the equation altogether. The arena had no precedent for this. Its creators had never imagined competitors would choose immobility over adaptation. The algorithm screamed. Data throughput spiked beyond safe tolerances as systems attempted to force resolution. Penalty protocols activated in rapid succession, each one demanding corrective action that never came. Automated warnings fired into human implants, urging compliance with escalating severity. The humans absorbed them without response, their attention fixed inward, toward the fragile rhythm of a single heartbeat drifting between existence and absence. Sensors recorded elevated respiration, erratic neural activity, hormonal surges associated with panic and attachment. The data did not align with any competitive model. This was not strategy. This was not defiance born of pride. This was something older, rawer, and deeply inefficient. The algorithms attempted to label it and failed. The arena's lights dimmed and brightened in rapid cycles, a visual stutter betraying systemic stress. Gravitic fields wavered, their once perfect gradients rippling as contradictory commands collided. Continue the match. Preserve equilibrium. Penalize noncompliance. Protect participants from unsanctioned harm. The rules were clear, but their application now produced mutually exclusive outcomes. For the first time since its construction, the grand arena of Kairos experienced internal contradiction. Historical archives surged into active memory across the League's networks, searching for analogs. There were none. Species had fought, cheated, even died within the arena's bounds, but they had always played, always continued, always accepted subtraction as the cost of honor. The humans alone had chosen refusal. Their bodies bore the cost immediately. Opposing strikes glanced off their clustered formation, force dispersing unevenly, and driving pain through muscles and joints not aligned to absorb it. Armor dented. Microfractures bloomed along reinforced plating. Blood escaped into the airless void, freezing into dark crystals that clung to suits and drifted away in slow, glittering arcs. The humans endured it without breaking formation. The unconscious keeper's rotation slowed to nothing as human hands secured the body. Medical systems engaged fully now, flooding the suit with stimulants and stabilizers. The beacons pulsed brighter, their light reflecting off visors streaked with condensation and stress fractures. The humans' breathing grew ragged, fogging internal displays faster than filters could clear them. Their focus narrowed until the rest of the arena ceased to exist. From the observation tiers, unease spread like a contagion. The alien spectators felt it in the tightening of sensory crests and the dimming of bioluminescent patterns. This was not noble attrition. This was not refined loss. This was attachment, displayed openly and without shame, in defiance of a system designed to erase it. The purity they had admired moments before curdled into something threatening. Adjudicators attempted manual intervention, flooding control pathways with override commands. The arena resisted them. Its core logic spiraled, unable to prioritize rule enforcement without violating its prime directive of participant preservation. To force continuation now would require escalating force beyond acceptable thresholds, risking fatalities the system had been built to avoid. To allow stoppage would invalidate the match and shatter the League's most sacred precedent. The humans did not wait for the decision. One by one, they disengaged their magnetic harnesses. The sound carried through the arena as a series of dull, final clicks, vibrations transmitted through structure and field alike. Uniform seals released, panels drifting free as the humans stripped away the symbols of competition. Fabric and composite floated outward, spinning slowly, discarded like molted skin. The sight sent shockwaves through the crowd, disbelief hardening into outrage. Naked of insignia and regulation, the humans propelled themselves toward the arena's exit vectors, cradling their unconscious keeper between them. Their movements were slow and unoptimized, burdened by care and pain, but unwavering. Penalty systems blared uselessly. Disqualification flags saturated the display space. None of it mattered. The humans were already gone. Behind them, the field remained frozen, a perfect tableau of halted momentum and unresolved equations. The opposing team hovered in stunned paralysis, victory suspended without meaning. The arena's lights stabilized at last, dim and uncertain, as if ashamed. Across the galaxy, recordings of the moment propagated at impossible speed. Analysts replayed the instant humanity stopped, dissecting it frame by frame, searching for the calculation they believed must exist. They found none. What they found instead was refusal made visible, an entire species choosing loss over indifference. The League would not survive that image. But in that moment, as the arena drifted between its twin suns and the humans vanished into the quiet beyond the field, no one yet understood the scale of what had just broken. Violation markers ignited across the arena's perception space like wounds opening in light. Adjudication glyphs pulsed crimson and amber, layering themselves over the frozen geometry of the match. Officials triggered enforcement protocols with practiced precision, their commands cascading into the arena's core as absolute instructions. The system obeyed by recalculating. Probability engines spun faster, devouring new inputs, projecting outcomes that no longer branched but collapsed inward. Loss curves steepened until they pointed toward a single, unavoidable conclusion. Defeat was no longer a risk. It was a certainty. The humans did not respond. They remained clustered around their fallen keeper, bodies pressed together in a dense knot of mass and heat. Impact struck them from multiple vectors, glancing blows and full-force collisions alike, energy dispersing into flesh and bone rather than flowing along optimized channels. Armor screamed under strain. Microfractures propagated like frost through composite plating. Blood seeped into the void, iron scented even through filtration, freezing into black-red filaments that twisted and shattered into drifting shards. The arena registered pain in escalating spikes, alarms screaming for redistribution that never came. The rules demanded distribution. Force was meant to be shared across the field, diluted through motion and spacing. What the humans were doing concentrated damage instead of dispersing it. It was the worst possible response by every competitive metric. It shortened endurance curves. It accelerated failure states. The algorithms flagged it as catastrophic inefficiency and attempted to intervene, nudging gravitic currents to pry the formation apart. The humans tightened. Their hands locked onto the unconscious body at the center of the cluster, fingers digging into suit seams and armor ridges until knuckles whitened beneath synthetic skin. Their breathing grew harsh and uneven, condensation streaking their visors in erratic patterns. Internal monitors recorded surging adrenaline, cortisol flooding systems already pushed past safe thresholds. None of it translated into withdrawal. None of it translated into adaptation. The humans endured without optimizing, suffering without correcting. From the observation tiers, the watching species recoiled in instinctive horror. This was not bravery as the galaxy understood it. This was not sacrifice calculated for advantage. It was protection without return, damage absorbed for no gain. It violated the unspoken covenant of competition itself. To accept harm without extracting benefit was madness. Officials escalated penalties. Disqualification signals hammered against human implants, broadcasting the certainty of loss, the formal stripping of status and reward. Trophy allocation protocols reassigned ownership in silent anticipation. Historical records updated themselves, preparing to log the humans as another cautionary example of emotional excess. The system waited for compliance. Compliance never came. Instead, a new anomaly emerged, one that the arena's creators had never imagined. One by one, the humans reached for the seals at their harness points. Fingers found latches slick with blood and coolant. With deliberate slowness, they disengaged the magnetic anchors that bound them to the field. The sound carried through the structure as muted concussions. Dull thuds felt more than heard, each one a rejection made physical. Uniform panels detached next, releasing with soft bursts of pressure. Fabric and composite peeled away from bodies and drifted free, rotating gently in the arena's cold light. Team colors faded as garments separated, becoming weightless debris. They floated like shed skins, empty and accusing, catching reflections of the twin suns in dull, lifeless sheen. The visual processors of 1,000 species struggled to interpret the act. To remove one's uniform was to step outside the game. To remove it mid-final was unthinkable. The humans did not rush. They did not flee. They completed each motion with care, ensuring their fallen keeper remained supported, limbs secured, rotation controlled. Only when the last harness disengaged did they turn toward the exit vector. Their bodies were battered, movements slowed by pain and cumulative damage, but their trajectory was unwavering. They propelled themselves forward with short, inefficient bursts, leaving behind the perfect geometry of competition for the rough, improvised line of departure. The arena responded with fury. Containment fields surged, attempting to herd the humans back into play. Penalty subroutines screamed for escalation. Yet every option terminated in contradiction. To forcibly restrain them risked lethal force, violating participant preservation. To allow them to leave validated refusal, undermining the League's authority. The system hesitated, trapped between mandates that could not coexist. The humans passed through the exit threshold unopposed. Behind them, the field hung suspended in a tableau of unresolved motion. The opposing team remained frozen, weapons of momentum idle, victory hovering without substance. The trophy allocation routine stalled, unable to complete a process whose meaning had evaporated. What was triumph without contest? What was honor without consent? Across the galaxy, the act detonated. Transmission relays flooded with unauthorized feeds as spectators captured the moment from every angle. The images spread faster than censorship protocols could react, saturating networks and cultural memory alike. Analysts replayed the humans' withdrawal in forensic detail, tracing each disengaged harness, each drifting uniform fragment, searching for deception or hidden strategy. They found none. There was no feint, no delayed gambit, only abandonment. To every logical species watching, the conclusion was immediate and unanimous. The humans had committed competitive suicide. They had thrown away the final, the trophy, and the certainty of defeat without resistance. They had rejected the only outcome that mattered within the League's value system. It was incomprehensible, and yet the incomprehension cut deeper than outrage. Because buried beneath the calculations and traditions was an unspoken truth the galaxy had avoided for centuries. Victory had always required consent to indifference. The League endured because its species had agreed that loss, even of bodies, was acceptable if the structure survived. The humans had broken that agreement with a single, irreversible act. In the aftermath, the arena drifted in uneasy quiet. Its lights dimmed to standby hues, blue bleeding into gray as systems powered down from emergency states. The twin suns continued their slow dance, indifferent witnesses to a fracture that could not be repaired. Officials filed reports thick with error flags and unresolved contradictions. Probability engines idled, their projections meaningless in the absence of willing participants. The discarded uniforms continued to drift, silent markers of a boundary crossed. They would be retrieved later, cataloged, archived as artifacts of an event no rulebook could explain. But in that moment, suspended between stars and certainty, the galaxy felt something unfamiliar tighten around its collective consciousness. Fear, not of human strength, not of human aggression, but of a species willing to lose everything rather than accept a victory built on abandonment. The arena fractured into disorder the moment the humans vanished beyond the exit vector. Motion, once constrained by elegant equations, became erratic and uncontrolled. Gravitic currents oscillated without purpose, throwing loose debris into slow, spiraling arcs. Emergency lights strobed through the lattice, bathing the field in alternating washes of amber and pale blue. The hum of stabilized equilibrium broke into a discordant vibration that crawled through hull and bone alike, a sound felt in the chest rather than heard. The opposing team remained suspended at the center of the field, bodies locked in stunned stillness. Their limbs drifted at imperfect angles, momentum half spent, as if the universe itself had paused to wait for instructions that never came. Victory indicators glimmered faintly in their peripheral displays, already assigned, already hollow. Without resistance, without struggle, triumph curdled into something inert and tasteless. The absence of contest stripped achievement of meaning, leaving only the echo of an action never completed. Judicial constructs swarmed the arena's control layers, deploying enforcement routines in overlapping waves. Penalty matrices activated. Sanction cascades unfurled with bureaucratic fury. Yet every process terminated against the same immovable fact. Enforcement required subjects. The humans were no longer present. Their identifiers had cleared the competitive perimeter, their biosigns retreating into the sterile corridors beyond the field where the air smelled of antiseptic and cold metal. There, away from the roar of spectators and the glare of suns, they carried their unconscious keeper with deliberate care, sealing fractures, stabilizing respiration, anchoring life with hands that trembled but did not let go. Inside the arena, authority collapsed into contradiction. Officials attempted to declare outcomes, to formalize conclusions, but each declaration rang false against the visual truth hanging before them. A final could not exist without consent. A trophy could not weigh more than a body. The League's vaunted systems, built to arbitrate violence with mathematical purity, found themselves mute in the face of refusal. The crowd reacted in waves. Confusion surged first, a chaotic roar that scraped across the arena's outer hull like a storm of static. That confusion sharpened into anger as spectators demanded resolution, demanded punishment, demanded the familiar comfort of order restored through force. Then something quieter spread, seeping through the stands like a chill. Doubt. The realization that what had just occurred could not be undone by louder signals or harsher rules. The game had not merely stopped. It had broken. Across the galaxy, recordings escaped containment almost instantly. Private feeds, unauthorized captures, and internal diagnostics leaked into the public data oceans faster than any official ruling could be drafted. The moment of rupture replayed itself on worlds of crystal spires and fungal forests, in orbital habitats and subterranean warrens. Analysts slowed the footage until individual particles of blood could be seen crystallizing in vacuum. They traced the exact instant where human hands reached not for advantage but for each other. They marked the frame where uniforms detached and drifted free, symbols shedding meaning in real time. Entire institutes devoted to competitive theory dissected the event with obsessive rigor. Probability scholars recalculated outcomes under every conceivable alternative, attempting to prove that the human's choice concealed some deeper optimization. They found none. Behavioral scientists mapped hormonal surges and neural patterns, comparing them to known sacrifice responses across sapient species. The data refused to align. Moral philosophers, long sidelined by the League as inefficient relics, were dragged back into relevance as systems strained to describe what had occurred without collapsing into paradox. At the heart of every analysis lay the same collision. Honor as defined by rules had struck honor as defined by people. The League had codified endurance, obedience, and continuity as supreme virtues. Humanity had introduced an uncontrolled variable, care. Not the abstract care of preservation protocols, but visceral, irrational attachment that placed individual life above structural integrity. It was a value that could not be optimized without ceasing to exist. The opposing team drifted from the arena long after the humans were gone, their departure marked by mechanical compliance rather than celebration. Medical scans later recorded elevated stress responses, microtremors, and prolonged cognitive dissonance. Some would resign within standard weeks. Others would refuse future finals. None would speak publicly of the moment, but internal reports would note a persistent disruption whenever the humans' exit vector was mentioned. Victory had wounded them in a way defeat never had. Within the league's archival cores, automated historians struggled to categorize the match. It could not be logged as a win. It could not be logged as a loss. It existed instead as an unresolved anomaly, flagged for perpetual review. Cross-references multiplied as older incidents resurfaced, moments when lesser species had hesitated, faltered, or withdrawn, only to be erased from records as failures of discipline. Those incidents were re-examined under a new lens, their quiet refusals recontextualized as early fractures the league had sealed over with silence. The arena itself bore scars invisible to casual inspection. Stress patterns in its gravitic lattice never fully normalized. Sensor arrays recorded phantom mass at the coordinates where the humans had clustered, residual distortions that persisted long after recalibration. Maintenance crews reported a lingering metallic tang in the air, an olfactory artifact with no identifiable source. Engineers dismissed it as contamination. Veterans of the field knew better, though they lacked language to explain it. Beyond the arena, in corridors stripped of spectacle, the humans moved with grim efficiency. The unconscious keeper was transferred into medical containment, surrounded by the steady hiss of life support and the sterile glow of diagnostic fields. Their teammates remained close, armor dented, skin bruised, eyes fixed on the slow rise and fall of a chest that still breathed. No banners followed them. No cameras were allowed. The moment belonged to them alone, unrecorded except in memory. When the league finally issued its official statement, it arrived too late to matter. Its language was precise, sterile, and absolute, condemning the violation while reaffirming tradition. It circulated through official channels and vanished into irrelevance within standard minutes. The galaxy had already seen the truth from unfiltered angles. No ruling could erase the image of a game abandoned for a life. In the aftermath, something irreversible settled into collective awareness. The League had always claimed universality, insisting its rules reflected the natural order of competition itself. Humanity had exposed the lie not through rebellion or conquest, but through absence. By walking away, they had revealed that the structure endured only as long as participants believed it deserved to. The arena fell silent again, drifting between its twin suns as it always had. But the silence had changed. It was no longer the quiet of certainty. It was the quiet of something waiting to collapse, held together by habits that no longer felt inevitable. Across the stars, minds lingered on the same frozen frame, replaying the instant where the game broke and wondering for the first time whether endurance without empathy had ever truly been honor at all. Withdrawal notices began arriving before the arena's emergency lights fully dimmed. They flooded League data vaults in uneven bursts, stamped with genetic seals and cultural markers from species that had competed for centuries without protest. Within one standard day, the pattern became undeniable. Teams suspended participation. Crews recalled vessels mid-transit. Training habitats powered down. Their rotation slowed, as if the very idea of preparation had lost momentum. What had been an isolated anomaly metastasized into systemic collapse with terrifying speed. The League's administrative core strained under the sudden absence of compliance. Schedules unraveled as match brackets dissolved into empty nodes. Predictive engines, designed to forecast seasons centuries in advance, returned null outputs and contradiction loops. Their models required assumption of participation, of willingness to endure sanction loss. That assumption had evaporated. Without it, the mathematics of competition degraded into noise. Across training worlds and orbital complexes, athletes removed insignia with careful hands. Some burned them in controlled atmospheres, the acrid smell of polymerized fabric filling closed chambers. Others sealed uniforms into vacuum caskets, unwilling to destroy symbols that had once defined purpose. Physical reactions mirrored the moral rupture. Elevated heart rates, disrupted sleep cycles, and stress markers spiked across species previously celebrated for emotional regulation. The withdrawal was not coordinated, yet it moved with eerie synchronicity, as if a silent signal had passed through the galaxy. Teams refused to compete under conditions that demanded success at the cost of indifference. Official statements varied in phrasing but converged in meaning. Victory achieved through abandonment no longer registered as victory. Endurance measured in bodies rather than bonds felt hollow. The League attempted damage control, issuing reassurances about tradition, honor, and necessity. Those words echoed without anchor, stripped of the authority they once carried. Sponsors reacted faster than councils. Financial conduits snapped shut as funding entities disengaged from triumph that tasted like neglect. Advertising arrays dimmed. Monumental holograms celebrating past champions flickered and powered down, their light bleeding away into the surrounding dark. The flow of capital that had sustained zero-gravity ball for generations rerouted itself toward quieter endeavors, leaving behind empty ledgers and abandoned infrastructure. Triumph without meaning had proven a poor investment. Emergency councils convened in chambers carved from crystal, metal, and living stone. Delegates arrived trailing exhaustion and recycled air, their sensory organs dulled by sleepless cycles. They replayed the human withdrawal until the footage burned into collective memory. Every frame sharpened the same dilemma. Condemnation required an alternative that could be defended. None existed. To punish the humans was to affirm that a life was expendable. To ignore them was to admit the League's moral foundation had fractured. Legal scholars drafted sanctions and erased them. Philosophers argued until language itself failed, words collapsing under contradictions they could not resolve. The councils discovered a truth more destabilizing than rebellion. The humans had not attacked the League. They had not demanded reform. They had simply refused to continue. Against refusal, authority found itself powerless. Zero-gravity ball did not end with riots or war. No fleets mobilized. No banners burned. The sport dissolved through collective absence, like a structure revealed to be hollow once everyone stopped pretending it was solid. Arenas drifted and used between stars, their systems idling in low power states, lights cycling through maintenance hues no audience would ever see. The silence that followed was not sudden. It spread gradually, heavy and irreversible. Historians would later mark this period as a hinge point, though no single date could contain it. The dissolution unfolded across different calendars and chronologies, yet the sequence remained consistent. Withdrawal, silence, reassessment. Entire cultural identities, once intertwined with the League, reeled under the loss. For some species, zero-gravity ball had been the ultimate expression of worth. Its absence left a vacuum deeper than any physical void. Into that vacuum flowed something unmeasured. Across the galaxy, the human act was revisited not as scandal but as reference. In diplomatic academies, cadets studied the footage alongside first contact treaties. In military strategiums, commanders examined the withdrawal as a maneuver that achieved strategic effect without force. In medical ethics boards, the moment was cited as evidence that survival could supersede system integrity without collapsing civilization. The humans had not issued doctrine, yet doctrine grew around them. Humanity itself offered no manifesto. Their teams did not tour the galaxy preaching reform. They returned to their worlds and stations, carrying scars both visible and internal. Some retired from competitive life entirely. Others redirected their physical drive toward rescue operations, hazardous engineering, and exploration initiatives deemed too inefficient by prior standards. Their choice resonated not because it was explained, but because it was lived. Other species began to emulate fragments of that behavior, cautiously at first. Training protocols incorporated emergency cessation clauses. Competitive structures experimented with voluntary pauses, then permanent exits. In some cultures, the word for victory evolved, acquiring connotations of shared survival rather than singular success. None of these changes were mandated. They spread organically, seeded by the realization that refusal was an option. The League attempted reformation. Committees proposed revised rules, safety thresholds, symbolic acknowledgments of care. Participation offers were extended. They were met with polite silence. The credibility that once made the league inevitable had eroded. No adjustment could restore what had been lost, because the core assumption had been exposed as optional. Once seen, it could not be unseen. In abandoned observation decks, dust accumulated on consoles calibrated to track impossible feats of endurance. The air smelled stale, recycled without purpose. Maintenance drones continued their routines out of habit, polishing surfaces that reflected nothing but distant stars. The twin suns of Kairos still bathed the empty arena in cold light, shadows intersecting as they always had. The structure remained intact, yet it felt smaller, diminished by irrelevance. The galaxy learned its lesson slowly, painfully, and without ceremony. Humanity would rather lose everything than win alone. They would accept defeat, obscurity, and condemnation before they would accept triumph purchased with abandonment. That truth unsettled civilizations built on optimization and sacrifice ratios. It rewrote threat assessments and alliance projections. A species that could not be coerced by victory was unpredictable in ways no model could contain. Once that truth settled into collective awareness, it altered the meaning of success everywhere it touched. Achievements attained without consent began to taste bitter. Victories lacking shared cost felt counterfeit. The universe had not changed. Stars still burned. Empires still rose and fell. But something subtle and permanent had shifted in the moral gravity wells of countless minds. In the quiet aftermath, when the last official record of Zero Gravity Ball was archived and sealed, no monument marked its end. There was only absence, and within that absence, a recalibration of values the galaxy had never calculated. Humanity did not conquer the League. They outgrew it. And once that example existed, no structure demanding indifference in exchange for glory could ever fully recover. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of possibility, heavy with the understanding that some victories were too small to be worth the cost, and that the greatest act of strength the galaxy had ever witnessed was a species choosing to walk away together, leaving an entire institution to collapse under the weight of its own assumptions.